Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a theory that's, well, it's pretty wild. It ties together quantum physics, your own consciousness, and maybe even immortality. It's an idea that really challenges some of our most basic beliefs about who we are and what happens when we die.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with a question that people have been asking forever, right? Where is you? Where does that sense of self, your awareness, actually live? I mean, we all kind of point to our heads, but is it really that simple?
And check this out. This is a quote from a seriously respected neurosurgeon, Professor Penfield. After a whole career literally inside people's brains, he came to this conclusion: the source of our consciousness is definitely not in the brain. I mean, wow, let that sink in for a second.
So to really get this, we need to be clear on what we're even talking about. The theory we're looking at today has a very specific definition for consciousness. Think of it this way. It's not just a supercomputer crunching data. It's a system that knows it's a system. It's aware of itself. And that little detail, that self-awareness, that's everything.
Okay, so if it's not in the brain, then where the heck is it? Well, to even start to answer that, the theory says we need to pull way, way back and look at the bigger picture. We have to talk about information itself.
You know that old riddle, right? What came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, this theory has an answer, and it gets there by basically flipping the whole question on its head. It says, forget the chicken, forget the egg for a second. What's the one thing they both need to even exist at all?
And here's the logic. For life to get started, you need information, right? You need a blueprint, like DNA, to reproduce and evolve. But, and this is the key, information can't just float around in nothing. It needs a system to encode it, to store it. So that system, the thing that holds the information, had to exist before life itself could pop up.
Which leads to this pretty mind-bending conclusion. The foundation of life isn't really biology. It's a universe-wide information system that was here before anything else. And if that's true, then our consciousness, our self, is just one part of that huge cosmic system.
All right, let's keep going, because this is where it gets really interesting. This whole idea flies directly in the face of a fundamental pillar of modern science.
So mainstream science, for the most part, tells us that at the tiniest, quantum level, the universe is just random, it's chaotic. But you might have heard this famous quote from Einstein: God does not play dice. He just couldn't accept that. He was convinced that what looks like randomness had to have some deeper, hidden explanation.
To help us get our heads around this, the theory uses a great analogy. Picture this. You've got a group of brilliant college students. Their job is to study radio waves in a city. But there's a catch. They have absolutely no idea that cell phones exist. So they get to work, they're taking all these measurements, and all they see is what looks like random, chaotic noise. The signals are totally unpredictable. They're so smart they even come up with this amazing mathematical model that can predict the probability of the noise. Their math is perfect.
But here's the thing. Their math might be right, but their understanding of reality is completely wrong, because what they're calling random noise, it's actually millions of intelligent conversations. It's people making choices, sending information back and forth. They've missed the entire point. And that's the big question this theory poses. Are we making the same mistake? Is all that randomness we see in the quantum world actually a super complex, intelligent information system that we just don't have the tools to understand yet? You know, are we the college students?
Okay, so if we run with this idea that the universe is this giant information system, where do we fit in? Where does my individual consciousness, or your individual consciousness, actually live?
This is where the theory introduces the idea of a soul, but not in the way you might be thinking. We're not talking about a religious concept here. We're talking about a physical thing, a material carrier. The idea is that it's made of a huge cloud of electrons that are all quantum entangled. That means they're all linked together, acting as one giant system, no matter how spread out they are. And that system is what holds all the information that is you.
And the numbers here are just staggering. We're talking about 4 billion trillion electrons. That's a 4 followed by 21 zeros. Just try to picture that. And every single one is part of this interconnected web that is your consciousness.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's a cool idea, but is there any proof? Well, the theory points to a field called electrophotonics. Now, to be clear, this is pretty controversial and not accepted by mainstream science. But the idea is that this technique can actually photograph a faint glow of light around the human body
and that this glow is a visual representation of that information field we've been talking about.
And here's an experiment they point to that really gets to the heart of the claim. They took an image of someone who actually had cancer. Then they took an image of someone who was perfectly healthy, but had a deep, intense fear of getting cancer. And the patterns in their glows, they were almost identical. The takeaway? The information signature seems to come from the consciousness, from the thought, not just from the physical cells.
And it gets even wilder. Some researchers in this field claim that they can still see this glow for up to 3 days after a person has died. They even say that the patterns look different depending on how the person died, like an accident versus a suicide, with suicide supposedly creating the most intense activity of all.
So let's put the pieces together. If our consciousness is just information, and that information is stored on these electrons that are basically indestructible, what does that actually mean when our physical bodies die?
Well, the theory makes a really clear distinction. Our physical bodies, they get old, they break down, they're temporary. But the electrons carrying our consciousness, they're practically immortal. They could survive a nuclear blast. They just keep going.
And this is where the idea of reincarnation comes in, but framed as a kind of cosmic law of information. The data of our consciousness, every thought, every choice, it all gets carried forward. The idea is that any errors in our programming have to be dealt with. We have to experience the consequences, whether it's right away or 10 lifetimes from now.
So, what's the whole point of all this? According to the theory, our physical life has one big purpose: to develop our consciousness, to intentionally program that personal cloud of electrons with good, useful, positive information, not just for our own sake, but for the benefit of the whole cosmic system. Which leaves us with one last, pretty heavy question. A question that brings this huge cosmic theory right down to a really personal level. If your consciousness really is information that lasts forever, if every single thought you have is a line of code being saved to an eternal hard drive, what are you programming?